Arya lived in a world that never stopped moving. Alarms, notifications, deadlines. Her mind buzzed like a noisy market. Even in silence, her thoughts argued with each other. She often asked herself, why can't I feel peace? Why can't I just be happy? Every night, she lay awake, listening to her own thoughts louder than the world outside. One evening, while walking by a river, she met an old traveler. His eyes carried stillness. His breath was slow and steady. He simply said, "A quiet mind is not empty. It is full of life's wisdom. Quiet your mind, and you will flow like this river." The next days were not easy. Arya tried to quiet her mind, but silence felt impossible. Memories of mistakes echoed. Worries about tomorrow stormed in. The desire to control everything made her restless. She felt like a bird trapped in a cage of her own making. That night, she dreamt of a river blocked by heavy stones. The water struggled, splashed, and fought to move forward. She woke up and realized, this river is me. These stones are my fears. The traveler began teaching her breathing practice, to anchor herself in the present. Observation, to notice thoughts without being carried away. Letting go, to release control and trust life's flow. At first, it felt useless. But slowly, she noticed small miracles. A morning breeze felt softer. Her heartbeat slowed when she sat still. She could smile without forcing it. Peace was not sudden. It was like dawn, slowly spreading light. With time, Arya stopped fighting her thoughts. She began listening instead. When fear whispered, she asked, "What do you want to teach me?" When sadness appeared, she embraced it like an old friend. When joy came, she allowed it without guilt. Her life changed quietly. Work felt lighter because she wasn't rushing. Conversations were deeper because she was present. Nights were peaceful because she no longer chased tomorrow. Her inner river flowed freely again. One day, Arya faced a challenge. Her plans collapsed, and she had to start over. The old Arya would have panicked. But now, she sat by the river, breathed deeply, and said, "If the river changes its path, does it complain? No, it flows. So will I." Her calmness became her power. People noticed. Friends came to her for advice. Even strangers felt peace when she spoke. Years later, Arya returned to the same riverside, where she first met the traveler. She no longer searched for peace. She had become peace. She whispered, "The river does not force, yet it shapes the earth. The river does not hurry, yet it reaches the ocean. So is a quiet mind, gentle, yet unstoppable." Her story ends, but the message remains. When the mind is quiet, life flows naturally. When life flows, we live fully. Alara lived in a small town surrounded by mountains and rivers. On the surface, her life looked ordinary. She had work, friends, and responsibilities. But inside, she carried a burden invisible to others. She held on tightly to the words people once spoke that hurt her. The mistakes she could not forgive herself for. The dreams that had slipped through her fingers years ago. It was as if she walked each day with heavy stones in her pockets. She smiled on the outside, but deep inside, she was wary. Her mind whispered constantly, "What if I fail again? What if they leave me? What if I let go, and everything falls apart?" One night, unable to sleep, Elara walked to the river's edge. The moonlight painted silver lines across the flowing water. She sat quietly, listening to the current, and in that silence, a question rose in her heart. Why do I hold so tightly, when life itself is always moving? As she sat lost in thought, an old fisherman appeared. His net rested over his shoulder, his steps slow but steady. He noticed Elara's troubled face and sat beside her. "Child," he said softly, "your heart is heavy. What do you carry?" She confessed, "I cannot let go. Of the past. Of people. Of my fears. I hold on until it hurts." The fisherman picked up a stone, and held it tightly in his fist. His knuckles grew white, his hand trembled. "Look," he said, "when I grip this stone, I suffer, my hand aches. But when I release..." He opened his palm, and the stone fell effortlessly into the river. The current carried it away, as if it had never been. He smiled. The river never clings. That is why it sings. When you let go, life flows. Elara wanted to believe him, but her heart resisted. The next day, she sat in her room and whispered, "I will let go." But memories came rushing back, faces, voices, regrets. Her fears screamed louder. If you let go, you will be alone. If you let go, you will lose everything. If you let go, who will you be? Her chest tightened. Her breath grew shallow. It felt safer to hold on to pain than to face the unknown freedom of release. That night, she dreamed of herself clutching a rope, tied to a sinking stone. The harder she pulled, the deeper she sank underwater. She could not breathe. Only when she released the rope did she rise to the surface, gasping in fresh air. She awoke trembling, whispering, "Holding on is drowning me. Letting go is the only way to live." The following days, Elara began small acts of surrender. She wrote a letter to someone who had hurt her deeply. Instead of sending it, she burned it, watching the ashes scatter into the wind. She released the expectation of being perfect at work, and allowed herself to be human. She stopped rehearsing conversations in her head, and simply chose silence. At first, she felt fear, like a bird stepping out of a cage unsure if it could fly. But slowly, her heart began to feel lighter. One morning, she noticed the sound of birds singing at dawn. It had always been there, but she had been too heavy to hear it. She began to smile. Not the practiced smile she showed others, but a genuine smile that rose naturally. The act of letting go was not loss. It was freedom. As days turned into weeks, Elara discovered something profound. Letting go was not about giving up. It was about trusting. Trusting that endings create space for new beginnings. Trusting that people come and go, but love remains in many forms. Trusting that even pain carries wisdom. She remembered the fisherman's words. The river never forces, yet it always finds the ocean. Her life began to reflect this truth. She no longer clung to relationships that drained her. Instead, she welcomed those who brought peace. She no longer feared failure at work. Instead, she tried boldly, knowing mistakes were stepping stones. She no longer worried endlessly about the future. Instead, she trusted each day to guide her step by step. Her inner river was flowing. One day, Elara faced a painful loss. An opportunity she had worked for slipped away. The old Elara would have broken down, consumed by despair, But this time, she walked to the riverbank. She sat quietly, watching the current. Tears filled her eyes, but instead of clinging, she whispered, "If the river can change direction and still move forward, so can I." She breathed deeply, allowing the pain to exist but not control her, and in that moment, she felt a strange strength, a strength born from surrender. Years later, Alara returned to the same riverside. The fisherman was gone, but the river was still flowing, eternal and free. She closed her eyes and placed her hand over her heart. She no longer searched for peace, she had become peace. Softly she whispered, "The river does not hold. The river does not force. The river flows. And so do I." Her burdens had dissolved into the current of life. Her story ends here, but its truth flows endlessly. When you let go, life flows. Kale's life was like a storm. Every day, he chased success, approval, and perfection. He thought, if I work harder, if I achieve more, then I will finally feel peace. But the truth was different. The more he achieved, the emptier he felt. At night, his body rested, but his mind kept running. He envied the river outside his window. No matter the season, it flowed steadily, calmly. He wondered, what secret does the river know that I do not? One evening, exhausted by his restless thoughts, Kale wandered into the forest. The sound of water drew him, and soon he stood by the riverside. There an old monk sat quietly, watching the current. His eyes reflected peace, like still water untouched by the wind. Kale spoke desperately, "Master, I have wealth, friends, and opportunities, but I have no peace. Why does my heart feel like a battlefield?" The monk replied softly, "Because you fight life instead of flowing with it. Flow, my child, is the secret to peace." He pointed to the river. "Do you see? It bends when it must, moves when it can, and accepts what lies before it. It does not resist, yet it carves mountains. Flow is strength without struggle." Kale tried to grasp the lesson, but his restless mind argued, "If I stop fighting, won't I lose everything? If I let go, won't I be weak?" The monk gave him a parable. "A tree that refuses to bend in the storm will break. But the reed that bends survives, for it flows with the wind." That night, Kale dreamed of himself swimming upstream against a raging river. His muscles burned, his lungs screamed, yet he made no progress. Exhausted, he finally released his struggle, and the current carried him forward with ease. He awoke whispering, "Maybe peace comes not from control, but from surrender." The monk taught Kale 3 practices of flow. Breathe with the moment. Your breath is the river inside you. Follow it, and you will return to peace. Let thoughts pass. Your mind will bring storms. Do not fight them. Watch them drift, like clouds in the sky. Trust life's current. Do not grip the banks. The river will carry you exactly where you are meant to go. At first Kale failed. His mind clung to control, but slowly, he began to notice changes. He walked slower. He listened deeper. He laughed more easily. Peace wasn't something he hunted. It appeared when he stopped chasing. Life tested him. One day, Kale lost a great business deal. His old self would have panicked. But now, he sat by the river and whispered, "If the river can change its course and still reach the ocean, so can I." Another day, a friend betrayed him. Anger rose in his chest, sharp and hot. But instead of clinging to resentment, he let the pain move through him. It hurt, but then it passed, like water rushing over rocks. Slowly, Kale discovered that flowing did not mean avoiding pain. It meant allowing pain, trusting it would transform and move on. He realized, peace is not the absence of storms. Peace is the ability to flow through them. As years passed, Kale's life grew simpler, but his joy grew greater. He no longer clung to people, yet love flowed naturally into his life. He no longer forced success, yet opportunities came with ease. He no longer feared change, for he trusted the river of life. He became like water, gentle, adaptable, unstoppable. One twilight, Kale returned to the riverside. The monk was gone, but his presence lived on in the whispering current. Kale closed his eyes and breathed deeply. His heart was still. His mind was clear. He whispered to the water, "The river does not resist, yet it shapes the land. The river does not hurry, yet it always arrives. So too with peace. Flow is the secret." And so, Kale discovered what he had searched for all his life. Not in wealth, not in control, not in struggle. True peace lives in flow. Have you ever felt like you are pushing too hard against life? Like no matter how much effort you give, something inside you still feels heavy. Most of us live this way, forcing, chasing, resisting. We believe success is about controlling everything. But then we forget how water moves. Water doesn't fight. It doesn't rush. It bends, adapts, and continues flowing. And yet, it carves mountains, nourishes lands, and always reaches the ocean. This is the story of Anya, a woman who lived her life resisting every current, until one day, she discovered the beauty of flowing naturally. Anya was ambitious. She believed that hard work and control were the keys to happiness. Every morning, she woke up before sunrise, making lists, setting strict goals, and chasing perfection. But the harder she worked, the more life seemed to push back. At her job she felt drained, yet unrecognized. In her relationships, she often forced herself to please others. Inside her heart, she felt a quiet emptiness, like a bird locked in a cage. She often thought, why does life feel like an uphill climb, while everyone else seems to be gliding? One day, after a long, exhausting meeting, she walked to a nearby river. She sat quietly, watching the water move. Something about its effortless flow stayed with her. That evening by the river, Anya noticed something simple yet powerful. The water never resisted the rocks. It flowed around them. The river never questioned its path. It simply trusted. Despite obstacles, it always kept moving. She whispered to herself, maybe I don't need to fight so hard. Maybe I just need to flow. It sounded strange, even scary. She had always believed that forcing life was the only way to win. But the river seemed to say otherwise. Part 3: Learning to Let Go. The 22nd 30 minutes, Ananya decided to experiment with this new idea of flow. She started with small things. Instead of clinging to friends who ignored her, she let them go. Instead of over-planning her day, she left room for surprises. Instead of trying to impress her boss constantly, she simply did her work with sincerity. At first, she felt nervous. She feared she would fall behind. But to her surprise, she felt lighter. She began noticing things she had overlooked: the sound of birds, the warmth of sunlight, the beauty of silence. The more she let go, the more she discovered, flowing naturally doesn't mean losing, it means living slowly. Anya's life began to transform. In relationships, she stopped forcing love or friendship. This allowed genuine people to enter her life. The ones who stayed did so because they truly cared. In her career, she no longer chased opportunities with desperation. Instead, she worked with calm consistency. Surprisingly, promotions and projects began finding her. In her inner world, she stopped fighting her thoughts. Instead, she allowed them to come and go, like clouds passing in the sky. She realized something beautiful: the more I flow, the more life flows to me. One morning, as she walked through a garden, Anya looked at the trees, the flowers, and the sky. She noticed how everything in nature flows naturally. The sun rises without rushing. Seeds bloom in their own time. Rivers never doubt their direction. Nothing forces, yet everything grows. Nothing controls, yet everything aligns. Anya smiled and thought, maybe life has always been teaching me this. I just never listened. Anya's story is not just hers. It's ours. When we stop resisting and start flowing, we find peace in the present. We save energy for what truly matters. We attract the right people, opportunities, and moments. The beauty of flowing naturally is freedom. The freedom to trust life, to stop chasing endlessly, and to start living fully. So today, be like the river. Flow gently, flow wisely, flow with life, not against it, because in the end, flowing naturally will always take you exactly where you're meant to be.